This is the second part of two videos. If you want to see the first one, the link is in the description. This video will make a little more sense then. The Metroid universe is surprisingly consistent and deep for a Nintendo franchise. There was little to no debate about the story of Metroid. That was until Metroid Other M came around. In this video, I'll be going over various inconsistencies, plot holes, and bizarre design choices that baffle me when it comes to the story of this game, while also saying how it goes against other games. But not only that, I'll be going over some possible explanations for some of these issues, as out there as some may seem. Then finally, I'll be going over suggestions on how to fix Other M, and even give some alternatives to it like I said in my last video. Just so we're clear, none of these issues reflect how I feel about the game personally. That's a whole other topic. We're just looking at the facts for this video, while also making some assumptions and suggestions. The quality of the game shouldn't be taken into account. However, I will say that the majority of the issues will be chalked up to bad writing, but we're taking all of what we see here at face value. So let's talk about these issues and potentially find solutions to them. To start off with, let me correct myself on a few things. In the last video I mentioned that if Other M were to take place, Metroid Fusion would be impossible to occur. This was due to it being incredibly illogical for Samus to trust the Galactic Federation based on the events of Other M. It wasn't long until I was corrected on this, and in retrospect, it was stupid of me to not even notice it. It turns out almost everything is to do with BSL, the organization that owns the research station in Metroid Fusion. They also hired Samus to help their scientists on SR388 at the beginning of Fusion, and not the Federation as I believed. So that would explain why Samus wouldn't immediately suspect anything upon landing on the station. However, some things still don't quite add up. First of all, the BSL is still owned by the Galactic Federation, or is still at least hired by them, something that Samus would or should be aware of. And given how Samus shouldn't trust the Federation after Other M, she should have been way more hesitant to work for them. Not only that, Samus is hired by the Federation to investigate the research station, something Samus definitely wouldn't do as the job would be for the Federation directly. It is possible that the reasoning behind this is that Samus didn't really have a choice. Samus didn't have a ship of her own, and it can be guessed that Samus was given a deal. She gets the ship, but she has to investigate the station as a result, which would make sense, but there is no implication of this. And then there's Samus actually being on the station. She should have started to notice some similarities between the bottle ship and the BSL station. They both recreate the environments of planets that she's visited. They're both owned by the Federation to a degree, and something has gone wrong on them. What is also very similar is Adam's position in both Other M and Fusion. He is overseeing the operations that take place and near enough control Samus's every move. What seems a little out of place is how Samus talks about Other M in Fusion. She mentions him as if he has died some time ago, yet given the timeline, he has practically just died. Not only that, but she speaks highly of Adam, yet... Okay, now on to the second point that I talked about in my last video. Other M's confliction with the Prime series, corruption specifically. I propose that it did this with this section of dialogue.
It was the first joint mission I'd been a part of since becoming a freelance bounty hunter. And of course, it was the first time since my Federation days that I was following the orders of a commanding officer.
This seems to go against the events that occur in Corruption, where Samus leads the Galactic Federation into battle against the space pirates. She personally leads a squad of demolition troopers into battle and takes direct orders from Admiral Dane. Now, this may come as a surprise, but this isn't as conflicting as you might expect. Even I was surprised by this. I spoke with people in the Metroid community Discord, specifically Quent the Slayer and Strintz, or Strintz, whatever you prefer. I also talked about this with some of the comments in the last video, but the talk with the two from the Discord convinced me that this could actually work. The stretch here was that Samus led the demolition troopers into battle. I interpreted this as being in conflict with the joint mission point that Samus was referring to, since she technically had no obligation to help the troopers. They were just two parties joining together to achieve the same goal. I wouldn't hold the explanation of Samus being paid very valid. This applies whether she is paid or not. The real kicker here though is Admiral Dane's direct orders during the invasion. Now we need to establish something. There is a big difference between being under a commanding officer and simply following their orders. Being under a CEO implies that you are under their direct command and are a part of the unit that they control. This is obviously not the case in Corruption. Following the orders of a CEO implies that you are not under their direct orders and have the choice to follow their orders or not. Samus could have made the decision to not help the demolition troopers, but she didn't because she's got a brain and saw that she had to do this in order to accomplish her own mission. So where am I going with this? Well, it just so happens that Samus says that this is her first time since her Federation days that she was following the orders of a commanding officer. This is where the contradiction comes in. Samus was following the orders of Admiral Dane in Corruption. The position is nearly identical. The commanding officer needs Samus's help to achieve their goal and she complies. One thing people like to argue is that Samus in this instance became a member of Adam's platoon, and so the contradiction doesn't exist, but this is wrong. Adam, much like Dane, asked for Samus's help and she was an asset to the squad as opposed to a member. Think of her as a weapon in this situation. The weapon isn't a member of the platoon, but it is an asset. Okay, with that out of the way, on to more issues. Now, I won't go into every possible problem, because we'd be here for way longer than we need to, but there are other major ones that we need to go over. First, why are these guys called Zebesians? They're not from Zebes, so... well, it turns out that there's an official explanation, and this one isn't a joke. This species of space pirate pulled in America and named themselves after the planet after they took it over. This is from Sakamoto himself. So where did they come from then? Not the pirate homeworld, apparently. Even though that's in the name of the... Anyway, in Other M, we are told that the Zebesians specifically can't operate without a unifying intelligence to control them. Something along the lines of Mother Brain and Ridley. But during the Prime series, they did fine without both. So what gives? Well, the pirates in those games aren't actually Zebesians. To make a comparison, think of Halo and the Covenant. An organization made of several different species with various degrees of intelligence and abilities of independence. The space pirates in the Prime games are as organized and capable as the elites, researching on their own while bringing Ridley back from the dead. Twice. Not to mention their operations on Aether. Though I would like to say that it's entirely likely that Retro simply wanted different designs for the same species of pirate, which makes things more complicated. To have the pirates in the Prime games be a different species makes things easier, and they could even fill different roles. The Zebesians, however, as mentioned earlier, rely on higher intelligence to be effective. So how this species not only became a spacefaring one is a big question mark, but the fact that they rebuilt the base on Zebes without Mother Brain and Ridley for some time just blows this whole thing out of the water in my eyes. But for that, I have something in mind that could explain this. An entire contradiction in this game is Samus's character. Samus acts nothing like she did in any of the games previously. The way she acts here is very sudden and unreasonable. First of all, Samus only ever spoke when it was absolutely necessary, but here she's talking when there's absolutely no reason to. We don't need to know every single thought possible. What's worse is that the majority of the dialogue that Samus gives us is something we already know, even if we literally just found out about it. Samus is very emotion focused, unlike every other entry in the series. Samus usually puts the mission first. Her feelings towards it either come later or don't matter. Samus doesn't show any body language either. She's either completely motionless to no effect, or being overdramatic. Why would Samus cry for a man that just shot her in the back? It's not like Samus hasn't shown body language before, she has on many occasions, especially in the Prime series where it's on full display. Samus is also way smaller than she should be, especially out of the power suit. Adam is 6 foot tall. Here Samus is significantly smaller than him. She's supposed to be 6 foot 3 inches. Even in high heels, she is nowhere near his height. Just to throw this out there, Samus should not be wearing high heels. Not only are they impractical and serve no actual purpose, but they are literally catwalk heels. I mean, look at them. The creators of Samus themselves also say that she shouldn't have heels too high. I really don't understand this design choice. The next thing about Samus is the infamous Ridley scene. This just doesn't work for many reasons. Samus has fought Ridley several times, none of which she has displayed this level of fear. If anything, Samus seems to get annoyed whenever he shows up. She straight up charges at him in Samus Returns. Not only that, but Samus has already had a meltdown over Ridley, for the same reasons that she does in Other M. This happened in the manga and was far more brutal about it, with Ridley throwing her and torturing her. In Other M, he kind of just held her, I guess. Some would argue that PTSD doesn't just go away, and that's true. But this isn't the case in media like in video games. Subjects like this are almost always used for character development, and once it's been dealt with, it's not touched on again, or at least not on the same level of intensity. Now there is another suggestion that can make the scene work. It's just a shame that the game doesn't emphasize it at all, and that the meltdown itself doesn't seem to hint at it. The explanation is that since Ridley well and truly died on Zebes in Super Metroid, Samus doesn't expect him in the slightest. This is true, even Samus states this herself.
And the explosion that followed destroyed planet Zebes, along with the remains of Mother Brain, the space pirates, and my long-standing nemesis, Ridley, and the baby.
However, when we get to this part, it isn't reinforced whatsoever. Instead, Samus has a meltdown over what happened when she was a child. What I feel should have happened was that Samus should have a meltdown over the fact that Ridley just doesn't seem to die, as if he was haunting her. Samus wouldn't be having a meltdown over what happened when she was a child. She would be having a meltdown over Ridley himself. She would freak out about how she was certain that she had killed him, but her personal demon has come back to haunt her. Samus would become more angry than scared and would lose her composure, which the Ridley clone would take full advantage of. Samus would eventually recollect herself and then the boss fight would ensue. While it's an explanation, the game doesn't hint at this, especially where it needs it. Another point that puzzles me is that Adam's assumption that the Metroids that are immune to ice are indestructible. Samus has dealt with Metroids that don't have their typical weakness. Fission Metroids from Metroid Prime are the biggest example. In fact, there were multiple types that were only weak against a specific thing, but all were weak to a power bomb. Now Adam does say that Samus shouldn't use them, but at this point of the game, it should be way more reasonable to nuke the one sector that the Metroids are in, rather than needlessly sacrifice someone instead. Speaking of needless sacrifice, the Metroids are still a thing in the bottle ship, thanks to the Queen Metroid. Wait a minute. How is there a Queen Metroid? Metroids can only go through metamorphosis on SR388, or places simulating it. The bottle ship is simulating environments of Zebes, not SR388, so for there to be a Queen is a glaring flaw that makes me feel like I'm missing something. The Queen is also confirmed to be unaltered to act as a control specimen for the Metroid clones. There is nothing to suggest that the Federation took the Metroid to SR388 either. While it isn't impossible, the planet is only mentioned once to show the birth of
The baby. The baby. The baby. The baby. Babies cry. The baby. Babies cry.
So this seems, to me at least, to be the biggest inconsistency at the moment, and this one cannot be ignored. Like, am I missing something? This seems like a major oversight that someone had to have pointed out. Okay, enough with the issues and inconsistencies. Let me make a few suggestions that I think would practically replace Otherrealm. First off, the following orders bit. In Fusion, Samus states that this is the second time that she is taking orders. We will make the assumption that she is talking about being under a commanding officer, given that she also mentions that it reminds her of her CEO, as opposed to just a random other one. This wouldn't conflict with corruption since she is just following orders as opposed to being under a CEO. So this would mean during her time under Adam's command before Zero Mission. Samus never states that this is before or after she became a bounty hunter, so this will be taken as generally, this is the second time she's under someone's command. This is where my suggestion for a game or short story would take place. First off, this is where Adam should die. Samus describes Adam as if he had died some time ago, so here would be ideal. What happens to Adam could be why Samus leaves the Federation and why she is sent to Zebes in the first place. She's the only one that could get the mission done. Not only that, but this is where Adam should be developed, being closer to how he is described in Fusion, and maybe even show that Samus and Adam were close too. This whole idea will also kind of retcon the Metroid manga, so it would be important to bring back a lot of the important details that it touches on, such as Samus' backstory about her parents and her time with the Chozo. We are also going to change some things as well. I feel confident that I can bring this stuff forward since the contents of the Metroid manga were never officially translated. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about what could happen. So first we'd be shown Samus' life in the Federation Marines, doing drills and training. I say the Marines because it makes more sense for what I have in mind, as opposed to something smaller like the Federation Police. Then we'd see Samus' interactions with Adam, talking about their lives, which is where we'd get the confirmation about Samus' backstory, being that Ridley killed her parents and maybe some flashbacks to a time on Zebes with the Chozo. Anthony from Otherrealm could also make an appearance here since he is one of the few things that people actually liked from Otherrealm. Samus and Anthony would act like best friends in this, kind of like partners in a squad that they're in. They train together and hang out almost all the time, but they are nothing more than best friends. One thing I would love to see with these two is something like that Predator scene. You know which one I'm talking about.
You son of a bitch.
Then, at some point, Samus could have a dream where she sees the space pirates attacking Zebes and killing everything. To allow this to make sense, it should be shown earlier that the Chozo can foresee events happening. She would go to Adam to give her concerns, and since he's one of the few people that know of her history, he would take it seriously and discuss it with higher-ups. Here we would be shown that Adam cares for Samus through his actions and even him comforting her, reassuring her that things are going to be fine. He would have a scout go to Zebes to find out if what she suspected was true, just in case. Later, we could be given some backstory to Anthony, explaining why he joined the Marines and even some details about his family. He would, of course, refer to Samus as Princess at times. We should be shown this while they walk around the base that they occupy, which would be the planet of Daiban, like in the manga. Here we could also be exposed to new types of Federation equipment, like vehicles, ships, and even new soldiers. This would be when Adam calls them to a briefing. They are going to attack a pirate space station that was spotted in Federation space. Due to the size of the station, which is small, an equally small team would be needed to go in. Samus would volunteer along with Anthony. Other members of the 7th Platoon in Otherrealm could join the team as well, though of course without the deleter. The team could be named 7th Squad to reference this, and squad is a more accurate term since platoon tends to be teams of dozens of members. Adam would oversee the operation to attack the station from his frigate, as he would be a commander. He would also end the briefing with the good old saying of,
"Any objections, lady?"
The base would be desolate, dead, dark, and in ruin. There would be signs of a struggle throughout the facility. eventually coming up to dead bodies of space pirates. They would appear drained of life and husks of their former selves. No one would know what or who did this, but Samus would have a suspicion. She would take some steps to investigate further, and then someone in the squad would be attacked by none other than a Metroid. The squad would fire at it, but nothing would work. It would proceed to kill off the squad one by one. Adam would give the order to evacuate. He was authorizing the use of naval bombardment. Only Samus and Anthony would make it out and the station would be obliterated. On the frigate, Samus and Anthony would be debriefed and Samus would tell Adam that she remembers the creature from Zebes. Adam would tell Samus that he has sent a scout to Zebes to see if everything is okay. Samus would ask to go to Zebes to make sure that her chosen family were okay for herself, of which Adam would deny, saying that he can't issue orders over dreams and memories. He has to confirm everything before taking action to avoid unnecessary risks. Samus would have to begrudgingly accept this. Adam would apologize for it, but that's just how it has to be. The next day would come around. Daiben would come under attack from a space pirate flagship. The Federation fleet around the planet would engage the flagship, including Adam's frigate. Adam would order Samus and Anthony to go down onto the planet to fight the pirates' forces that had landed there. He would remain on the frigate. Samus and Anthony would battle their way through a number of pirates. They would get word that the commander of the invasion is on the planet and that they would have to go and defeat him. Samus, Anthony, and some Federation soldiers make their way to a pirate mothership that had landed. This ship was bringing the invasion force. They would have to get in to blow it up. Fighting through waves of pirates, they come to the entrance of the mothership, where above, a beam of plasma swipes through most of the Federation troopers. Ahead of them would land Ridley. Samus would instantly begin to panic and have a meltdown as troopers fire at him. Ridley would dispatch the troopers with ease and would swipe Anthony away with his tail. He would then go on to torture Samus and would actually speak, commenting on how she's dissolved as a Chozo warrior, even saying she'll probably taste worse too. She would be in immense distress and Ridley would just laugh, toying with her. At some point, Anthony would recover slightly. He would then fire a beam of plasma at Ridley, releasing Samus. Anthony would make his way over to her and get her on her feet, snapping her back to reality. Then Ridley would tackle Anthony and attack him. Samus would realize that Anthony needed her and would hesitantly attack Ridley. The battle would be intense, and Samus would display her true skills that she was taught in Zebes. In the end, Samus would use Anthony's plasma beam to defeat Ridley, of who would frantically retreat to his mothership. It takes off and flees. Samus would look to Anthony, who gives his final words. He would say that Daiben is his home planet, and would be surprised that he'd die there too. A Federation transport would bring Samus and the dead to a base, but it turned out that it was under attack as they got there. Samus would be merciless towards pirates without a word. During the fighting, however, Adam would contact Samus, stating that the flagship has dozens of motherships ready to travel down and attack the planet. Samus would instantly know what he is implying. He would tell Samus that he intends to ram his frigate into the flagship to cause it to blow up. Samus would be against it and rebel. Adam would inform her that the scout has confirmed that Zebes had been taken over by pirates. He would give the order to evacuate his ship, and once completed, he would ram his ship into the flagship. To blow it up, he would send the ship's reactors to overdrive and detonate it from inside the flagship, acting as a nuclear bomb. Samus would remain silent. Adam would tell Samus that the Chozo weren't wrong about her. She can be the galaxy's savior, but he has to do this to save the planet. Then the frigate would be evacuated, and Adam would give his last transmission.
No objections. Right, lady?
Samus would just stand there and look at where Adam's frigate was above the planet. Her visor would be solid in color. The ship would then fly directly into the pirate flagship and the entire vessel would be obliterated. The remaining pirates would retreat, be captured, or wiped out. After the battle, Samus would be called to the Federation headquarters. Here, she would first request to no longer be a part of the Federation, to which the leaders of the Galactic Federation would accept. However, they gave her a mission that they would reward her with money for completing. They would inform her about the marina and how it was attacked by space pirates some time ago. This was while transporting the creatures that she encountered in the pirate space station, the Metroids. She would be told that the Metroids are transported to Zebes, and that they know that the pirates have established a base there. Due to her knowledge of the planet, they would request her to wipe out everything, which Samus would accept without hesitation. So with that, that's the end of the idea that I have for what could replace OtherM, and so happens to be the end of this video. I hope you guys liked this video and what I brought to the table. If you have any issues, please let me know. I will respond to your comments. I sincerely apologize for how long this video took to upload. I was mismanaging my time with other things and just fell behind. It didn't help that I had to beat all of OtherM and corruption for this video, so I'm really sorry about that. If you like that segment about my story idea, I plan on writing a full script for it. This was a simplified version, so I have way more to tell. But this video took long enough to do as it was, so I couldn't go much more. Follow me on Twitter if you want updates for this and the videos that I do. Now with this beast out of the way, what's next? A lore video about Weevil. Yep, straight up. But I'm putting my own lore ideas into it as well. If you want to see that video, click that subscribe button, and I swear it will be quicker to make. And now, I am that Metroid guy, and I will see you in the next mission. Bye bye.